All right, tonight we've got radio host and private investigator Ed Opperman here from the Opperman Report. It's he's got a website, radio show, and it's also in podcast format. And he's been using his experience as an investigator, to interview lots of interesting guests and authors about true crime stuff, some current events, social injustice, all that kind of stuff, some conspiracy theories. Very interesting show and interesting research, and it's good to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on, Ed.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we've got lots of mutual Skype contacts. We were just chatting before we started recording about a guy that we had on a while back, John Potash, and he's got a documentary coming out. Before I forget to plug it, we should talk about it maybe. And Ed was a part of that as well. And you want to just chat about that for a bit, Ed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. John Potash just came out with this an excellent documentary based on his book, Drugs as Weapons Against Us. And there's a website too, drugsasweapons.com. And it's really, really thoroughly researched the film, starting off with the opium wars and opium importation, stuff like that, with the banks, and then gets into Iran-Contra. A lot of stuff about LSD in the 60s and how COINTELPRO and FBI and stuff like that used LSD to sabotage the revolutionary movements and stuff like that. And there's a clip with me and Hank Harrison, Courtney Love's father, about how it was really interesting. I was interviewing Hank Harrison for the third or fourth time, and just by coincidence, I was doing a recorded segment for my members section, and Potash just happened to message me on Facebook, and I says, "Hey, I'm talking to Hank Harrison," and he says, "Well, I got a question for him." I said, "Well, okay, call in." So he calls in, and he asked him about this story I'd heard about Courtney Love when she was 15 years old. She went to Ireland with 1,500, 2,000 hits of LSD. Yeah, and she hooked up with this guy. If I'm correct, I believe his last name was Leary, who was about 35 years old, a friend of Hank Harrison's, who worked for the CIA, a CIA agent. Courtney Love was dating a 35-year-old CIA agent when she was 15 years old, and they were giving away LSD in the rock scene over there in Ireland. Believe it or not. Okay.
Well, you can believe it. Like, we had Dave McGowan on as well. And it seems to fit in with that research where all these people were, sort of interconnected and related with their families and intelligence and high-level military rankings, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Potash talks about McGowan, too, in the film, too, as well. But it turns out this guy Leary, we're 90% sure, is the brother of that guy Leary on Shark Tank.
Huh.
Yeah. So no relation to Timothy Leary?
No, not this one. No. But he talks about Timothy Leary in the film too as well.
Interesting.
So yeah, the premise is also that really all these psychedelics that are supposed to be drugs of sort of awakening and kind of more spiritual nature are actually harmful, right?
Yeah, and if you look back, the whole time Timothy Leary was doing his tune in, turn out, and drop out, all that kind of stuff, he was he had an open case. He had marijuana charges against him. He's out on bail during that whole period of time. When I was a kid back in New York, and I was hanging out with the yippies on Bleecker Street down there, and they were advocates of LSD and selling LSD and stuff. I had mentioned Leary one time, and they all said to me, no, Leary's an agent. Leary's a cop.
Wow.
Yeah, Leary. Yeah, and it came out later on that he did. He admitted it when he was ratting people out, all the people that helped him break out of jail there, out of that jail, that he ratted them all out. And then also, too, when he was in Algiers with the Black Panthers out there, that they disassociated themselves with him, So, yeah.
So does he get into, you did mention Iran-Contra and all that as well, so the opium wars, all that. Does he get into, I find it hard to understand why they would co-opt the psychedelic part of it as well. Did that? Do you think that backfired in the end on them? There is a lot of people that are not tuning out, but they're tuning in through psychedelics.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I know what you mean. I like to think too that, and even along the same thread as the Dave McGowan stuff, that the music was inspirational, and the wardrobe and the whole counterculture movement and the LSD was all inspirational.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that they're doing their studies a lot more than we're doing our studies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think they're working on this a little harder than we are. And you don't see them doing it. If it's so uh, revolutionary, to put people in power, then they'd be doing it too.
Yeah, and it's still the big drug. I mean, the drug war is still a tool, a tool to use against us. And I mean, that's still, these things are all still legal. I mean, illegal.
Yeah, and the prisons are full of people.
Yeah.
On low level marijuana charges and stuff. Even after it's legal, and there's still people sitting in prison. I got a friend of mine down in Tennessee right now, still doing 25 years for marijuana, even after it's legal. Yeah.
Do you think that'll change at all?
I don't know. And I got to tell you something else. I'm not a big fan of marijuana. I tried a little bit because it's legal here now in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried it recently, and it just made me all feel like a failure. It wasn't even the paranoia thing. I quit smoking pot because it was making me paranoid. Way back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
But this time I tried it again, and it just made me feel like a failure. I just sat here and just like I was a total loser. That my whole life is a waste. I made a mistake. I was suicidal. So I'm not going to bother with it anymore. Even though I still love the smell of it, I love the look of it. But because I was a big marijuana fan back in the 70s and the 80s and stuff. The guys from High Times magazine and stuff in New York. But no longer.
We'll have to have John on again.
Yeah, we should.
Talk about his new documentary.
We should. It's been long enough. We've talked enough about the positive aspects of psychedelics, man. Maybe
must be 2 years ago now.
That again, yeah. It's at least 2 years. So what I heard you talking about, I've been listening to your show and stuff, and I heard you talking about your YouTube experience a little bit, but I didn't hear the details. I was wondering if we could touch on that as well, with all this deplatforming and demonetizing and censorship, and what happened with you there on that thing?
Yeah, well, okay, my first YouTube channel, the one I first had, Opperman Report, like 4 years ago when I started it, it had gotten up to like 300,000 views, and I think I had 3,000 subscribers, and they just shut that down one day. And I was being stalked by these people. Coincidentally, it mentioned Dave McGowan. They were also stalking Dave McGowan at the time. They were stalking him in his hospital bed when he was dying of cancer over there.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a whole big mess. And then, so that one got shut down. But I had a backup one that I use, Ed Opperman YouTube channel that just had for my PI stuff for years. And I built that one up. It's pretty big now. It's like 10,000 subscribers. It's like 1.5 million views. And 100 days ago, they just totally 100% demonetized it. They had done that thing where they made it every now and then they would take a video and demonetize it or make it limited the monetization.
Mm-hmm.
But 100 days ago, they totally 100% demonetized it. And so I had to resubmit, and I got it back again. But it obviously they're just because there's stuff that's totally. I'm on AM radio. I'm on AM radio. What's the place that I am? Well, there's nothing I'm doing that's it's inappropriate or anything.
Well, the topics are to them, I think.
Yeah, but not all of them. I had Gretchen Bonaducci on. Totally mainstream. Danny Bonaducci's wife. I just had her on. Craig Unger just wrote the book about the House of Putin, House of Trump. He's not alternative or anything. Totally mainstream.
Yeah. So what do you think? Why is it then? Why was it?
I don't know. Again, it is probably because they want to sabotage me because of the other stuff that I do.
Like the pedo stuff and searching, getting into some of those, specific cases about stuff. Do you think, or?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So it's not just an algorithm-based mistake, you don't think?
No, I don't think it's a mistake. And also, too, because I used to do like a lot of mainstream TV and stuff, too. Like, I was on Dr. Drew, I was on Nightline and stuff. And I used to do a lot of, audition for reality TV shows and stuff. And as soon as they find out that, you're involved in stuff like the McMartin preschool case and stuff like that, they don't want to touch you. It's totally blacklisted in mainstream Hollywood.
Ooh, can we go through that quick then and see if we can blacklist Grimerica? Let's talk about that.
There you go, yeah.
Let's start.
Well, it's important. It's an important foundational, case. I think from what I've heard I've heard you talk about that case a lot on your show, and it leads to other things as well, and some connections to people and organizations that we don't really realize has happened.
Let's poke the bear.
Yeah. It's like a foundation case, you know.
But you don't imply that children did not die in it, do you?
In McMartin Preschool?
Yeah, I don't know. You just got to be careful about that.
No children died at McMartin Preschool. That was child molestation. It wasn't a school.
No, he is denying it.
No, I believe the kids were molested there, and I believe that there were. Well, I don't know about 100% if there were tunnels there, because you know how Ted Gunderson went and hired that geologist who found tunnels, and he hired an archaeologist. But I went and located the geologist, the first geologist who showed up on the scene. I think his name is Bruce Michael. It's in my members section at OppermanReport.com. And people mention him in different articles trying to debunk McMartin and different stories because way at the beginning, before there was ever any arrest or any kind of court case or anything like that, the families were confronting the Bucky family and the McMartin family who ran the school, and they brought in Ted Gunderson, and there was a lot of chaos going on, and they brought in this guy, I believe his name was Bruce Michael or Michael Bruce, something like that. He was a geologist from Malibu, and he came out there with his ground-penetrating radar, and he could find no anomalies in the structure of the building or anything like that. But then later on, when what happened was the Bucky family, the McMartin family, couldn't pay their legal fees, so the attorneys got the deed to the property, and they turned it over to a real estate broker, and then they were raising the properties down. They were going to build right now there's a dry cleaners there, and they called up my guy, my geologist that no one's spoken to for 30, 40 years, and he showed up down there at the scene, and he saw with his own eyes a hand-dug room underneath the garage. There was a detached garage next to the preschool, and he found underneath there a hand-dug room and a hand-dug staircase underneath that garage. He didn't examine that garage the first time around because they told him it belonged to the neighbors. So that we have documented.
Jesus.
I really don't know much about the case.
Yeah, maybe you should
just
quickly summarize it for people too, just so they realize how significant. Because this is the one
that's a lot of stuff will be new for our audience.
Yeah, because it's one of the things that's really significant because it's the mainstream view is quite a bit different than the view that you're
right.
espousing here, right?
Okay, the McMartin preschool case was way back in the 80s, and it was kind of the big case that kicked off the whole thing that they called satanic panic. Yeah. And that they called false memories, that they claimed that the children started reporting to their parents that they were being molested at this preschool. And the police got involved, and they did find the kids they had STDs, they had anal tearing and stuff like that. There was absolutely 100% evidence of physical abuse to these children. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. It was a long trial, went on forever. And
years, right? A few years, like to the late 80s or something like that?
Yeah, if you go back and look this up, it did go on like 5 or 6 years from the time of the investigation till the time the trials were over, and the families were acquitted. Okay, but what happened was so many things happened. One of the prosecutors quit and actually went to work for the defense. This couple, I think they're called the Manns. Came in, and they actually did a movie about this called Indictment, the McMartin Preschool, and James Woods starred in the film, and Oliver Stone produced it. These Manns paid off one of the prosecutors to turn over his prosecution notes to the defense and get a percentage of that book and that film. Okay, yeah. And a lot of other characters became involved in this too because they wrote a book about it, False Memory Syndrome, and Dershowitz praised this book, and he said, this is going to change all these child molestation cases and stuff like that. So it was a groundbreaking case that was discredited in the public. And one of the reasons why it was discredited in the public is because these Manns, who were like screenwriters and stuff like that, they were involved with a film about the Holocaust, right? So they had Academy Award-winning film. But they had these connections with 60 Minutes and they held a 60 Minutes episode in their house with all the defendants from this case, and it was a totally one-sided case where they whitewashed all this. And also, too, then later on, this film came out with James Woods and Oliver Stone that, again, whitewashed this whole thing. But if you really look into this, and I would encourage people to look up the writing of Alex Constantine, and also, too, Dave McGowan. If you look at his work, Pediocracy, he talks about this McMartin Preschool. That's why I thought you guys were familiar with it. But it's from the 80s. It's from the late 80s and the early 90s. So it is kind of old. I'm an old guy. I'm 55 years old. So this was a while back. So Ted Gunderson became involved in this. And he had hired this archaeologist, and he claims that he found this tunnel reports, with archaeological reports where they claim they found tunnels underneath the school with the rooms there and all kinds of satanic ritual paraphernalia underneath these. And the rooms were filled in with loose dirt. So that's pretty much that story. It's a well-known story.
So is it connected? Like, is it connected to a bigger picture, a bigger network of this stuff happening at that time and now in the future as well?
Well, at that time, there was a whole bunch of these preschool cases where there was this allegation of satanic ritual abuse going on with satanic cults molesting kids in preschools. And this case had a connection to Colonel Michael Aquino, the head of the Temple of Set, the satanic cult, who was the military guy. You know who Michael Aquino is, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there was a connection to this case. The kids claimed that they were being taken to Aquino, just like they were over at the Presidio case and the West Point case, which were all the same pattern going on at the time with these preschools.
So, oh man. So do you want to expand on that at all, Darren, or do you want to move on? Like, I was wondering how, it's really come out to light a little bit more in the last couple of years now. The Pizzagate, Pedogate, and all that. Do you think there's any traction there? Is it helping these old cases, or like what's your feeling of now, like this many years later, and it's sort of gaining more ground again?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of the stuff that I see, I think that unless you've been researching this from way back then, like guys like Alex Constantine and Dave McGowan, and you have that kind of foundation, that I think a lot of these young guys I see getting into Pedogate and Pizzagate kind of run with everything, without any kind of discernment or any kind of sobriety. They just kind of run with every kind of room, and they just go wild with it, and just like that thing that went on in Tucson, Arizona, the pedo camp, which was complete nonsense. I actually talked to the homeless people at that camp who built that camp. It's just nonsense. And so there's a lot of stuff nowadays that I'm concerned about that is disinfo and being used to discredit these real cases.
Yeah, exactly. And there's too much attention on the fake ones, and then it actually the same thing happened in ufology until recently, which was really frustrating. Is the only attention they would ever get in the mainstream was bullshit cases that people could just tear apart, and then it would sort of help delegitimize the whole phenomena. And now it's very similar to this, where there's just all this fake news or people running away with it. Like I heard you talking to one of your guests about the Hollywood problem and the Hollywood stuff, and there's all these people accusing people, which really ends up hurting the case against these people, and it ends up hurting the survivors of this too, and possibly stopping law enforcement in a way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Although I do want to make clear that I was the first radio guy to talk about Pizzagate. When I started talking about Pizzagate, they were on Reddit. They flipped out. Oh, Opperman Report's talking about Pizzagate. We're getting traction. They've heard about us. But and I've talked to two witnesses off the air. I have two witness statements from serious, who went to the police, gave statements, all kinds of stuff. So I Pizzagate, and like I said before, that guy Alefantis. Like if I was investigating a child custody case, and I would have to turn up his Instagram page and all that craziness this guy's into, he would lose custody of his kids. There's no doubt about that.
And what about the cryptic emails? I mean, that really does seem weird. I mean, there is some legitimacy to that whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but then like the thing is, like you were saying though about like the Hollywood cases, there's so many levels to these things, that because let's say like the Corey Feldman, Corey Haim thing,
Yeah.
Okay, and I've been involved all over this thing because I was involved with the first. I was involved in a lawsuit against Charlie Sheen. The whole thing with my client was Capri Anderson, that girl he attacked in the hotel room, and then later on the lawyer and the agent who got me involved in that, Keith Davidson and Gina Rodriguez, had a lawsuit against Charlie Sheen when he had oral sex with a transvestite, and the transvestite sued him for an AIDS situation. So, and I looked at the clues, Corey Feldman, when all the clues he was leaving of who molested Corey Haim, and I came to the conclusion that the most logical subject was Charlie Sheen.
Pow.
Based on Corey Feldman's writings, and also too based on the fact that Denise Richards, Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, lays out in her divorce papers that this guy's involved in all kinds of stuff, man. This child pornography on his phone, and the kids look like they are showing signs of sexual abuse, galore, So
Hashtag winning.
Yeah, right. So I did a show called Let's Look at the Clues. Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Let's Look at the Clues. And I just laid out all the clues that are out there,
Yeah.
And people can make up their own mind. So Feldman saw that, he retweeted it. And then I got in touch with the Corey Haim's mother, right? And I put her in touch with a lawyer, to try and protect her interests and all this kind of stuff. And then she put me in contact with these women who were Corey Feldman angels. These women that were in Corey Feldman's band who are being abused by Corey Feldman, and Corey Feldman's doing all this shady stuff with the money, he's raising his money and he's not paying anybody and all this kind of. So I really got up to this whole thing up to my neck, but there's so many levels of betrayal and double dealing and shenanigans by everyone involved in that group, that you're talking to them and they have to go back and get permission from somebody else. There's someone higher up who's pulling the strings behind everybody there. So, on the surface, you can look at these YouTube videos and stuff like that and say, oh, well, Corey's the bad guy and Judy Haim is the good guy and the angels are the good girls. But when you really get into this, they're all kind of up to their necks in this stuff, and someone's paying everybody off.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Is it Charlie Sheen, do you think, paying everyone?
I couldn't make that allegation, but someone is. That's for a fact. It was. I think I could testify if I was being sued for libel. I could testify that from my observation of the situation, there's definitely someone above all the names I mentioned that's pulling the strings.
So, can I ask a question with the satanic panic part of that?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? We were like early teens at that time, so we kind of didn't really pay attention to it. And for some reason, you're right.
It was
like this
affecting
blind
it was
spot
affecting
in
our
the 80s.
Dungeons and Dragons at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we also liked the Goonies, so we didn't want to know all that, I guess.
Did you have any touchy-feely coaches or anything?
We had a hockey coach that was known, like we all knew, and we laughed. Who did I hear talking about this? Where
Jimmy Dore.
Oh, it was really funny about how they used to address this thing when they were kids, like it was sort of an in-joke, and you had to just protect yourself from these men that you knew. So there was like a hockey coach that we had that was kind of, I can't remember, he had a nickname that we all called him a nickname, and we all knew to kind of watch out for this guy and stay away.
So we kind of dissociate for this whole satanic panic thing.
Yeah.
So that's how they kind of like got this story to go away and get quiet, was by making it sound like there was this huge satanic cult that was going on, and then they could be like, oh no, that's silly, right? I mean, is that the case? And then everybody was like, that's silly and it's not really such a big deal, you're all in a panic, don't worry.
They would say, well, how could there be tunnels underneath this school? That's ridiculous, but the other thing too is they came out with this group called False Memory Syndrome, which isn't a syndrome, it's just an organization of they got it. Yeah, they have credentials. Some of them are therapists and stuff like that. But some of them have connections to child pornography themselves and Screw Magazine, all kinds of weird stuff going on. So that was the other thing too, is that the kids were had false memories. Was the other thing. The kids were.
Well, that's easy enough to do. You just crack, a consciousness, and then you can implant what you want. So
right, and how you do that is by trauma with the child abuse to begin with.
That's
right.
That's right. Exactly. So what I think you're saying is that the satanic influence in the cult is real and has been real.
Yeah, I believe there's a satanic element to this. I believe this 100%. And I believe that they do get some kind of energy and power from blood sacrifice and from child sacrifice and from molesting kids, too. It releases some kind of energy into this stuff. Because even these priests that are molesting all these kids, what kind of a normal person is having sexual contact with 200 people in their lifetime? It's just overwhelming. You know what I mean? And to be committing a crime every time you're doing it, it's just like, it's all consuming of your whole time and all your life and stuff like that. It's just way beyond a sexual urge. So there's something else they're getting from all this. Now, also, too, you mentioned how it cracks their consciousness and stuff like that, the trauma-based mind control. Aquino was part of that. That's what he does. He does psychological warfare. So he knows all this stuff. He was part of the Phoenix program in Vietnam and stuff. And they're still doing this. The same stuff that they were doing in Vietnam, they did in Abu Ghraib. And they're doing now at Guantanamo. They're doing all the same stuff.
They do it on NBC.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Even those TV shows like Fear Factor and stuff like that, or The Real World, they pretty much are doing it,
Well, you just come on every night, just as you're about to settle down for the night, and you're like, Trump is going to get you. He's the big evil monster. And everybody goes into this like, oh my God. And then they fill you full of whatever right after that. And you forget what they've told you, basically. And you only latch on to certain things, and you don't think to even look for details. I should stop my rant. I'm taking over their show.
Yeah,
again.
no, it's okay. I'm curious about so you were talking about Pizzagate when it was new and there was something there, and then this thing sort of spinning out of control. And then can you talk about that process at all, and what was that like, and how, like, did it, now looking back, like what, a year and a half later, maybe more, like did it end up the way you would have liked, or did it not, or like where's it going to go from here? Like there's a lot of sort of philosophical questions around that.
Yeah, I backed out of it. I'm pretty much backed out of Pizzagate. One of the things that happened is that first show that I did got so much, the YouTube views and all the hits on Spreaker and iTunes and iHeart was just overwhelming. And I said, you know what, man, if 5% of the people who are so fascinated with this topic, and they're, if you would just become a member, I would investigate this whole thing, and I could put together a case. I could put together a real case, So, but then all these people, just started this whole thing. Oh, we're going to hire Ed Opperman to run. And I got 100 different people contact me, and I said, no, you can't. And that's craziness. You can't do that. I can't have 100 clients. Who do I report back to? What if there's a change in the course of investigation? Who do I report back to? This is crazy. So, but if you look, what happened after that? Who shows up? George Webb with, what does he have? A crowdsourced investigation. So they take everything you're doing, man. You know what I mean? They take the real stuff and they fill in for you. You know what I mean? Yes, I pretty much just backed away from Pizzagate.
So did it fall apart then, or what do you think? Was there, like, at what stage did it go off the rails? Because there was a lot of, like, if you were just to look at, like, what you called earlier the clues, like the bullet points, I would call them, or the coincidences, like, it's a long list.
Yeah, but then if you look no, absolutely. Yeah, no, listen, there's a lot of smoke there. And I think that most people, sober people that are looking into this, believe that it's a CIA operation, which is why they're untouchable, just like the Finders and all these other cases, that it's a CIA operation, or some type of high-level blackmail operation like Franklin Cover-Up and Craig Spence and, that kind of level type stuff.
Or even bigger.
Yeah, right, or even bigger, like you said, too, because look at Epstein, he was involved with Mossad and stuff, and all these high-ranking people, the Rothschilds, the Evelyn Rothschilds, Dershowitz, so yeah, it's all at a high level for sure. So there was a lot of factors, but then I think when things started really getting off the rails is when you would start seeing all this stuff of, hey, we hacked into their server and we found this and we found that, just nonsense, and just stuff that's just totally, and just everybody just running with everything, like, people are just so gullible.
Totally. So I wonder so much fake news.
I wonder if the Vatican knows something about about fucking kids.
That's what I was gonna say.
It seems like they would know the same thing as the whatever elites or the satanic people. If they're doing that for some sort of power, it seems like the Vatican knows about it too.
Yeah,
Seems
I
like
would.
they're the one who's seem to have a problem.
That's why the Rio Museum burned down the other
Mhm.
night. Did you see that?
No.
20 million
Oh, yeah, I did
priceless
see that.
pieces gone. Who knows if there was a really big archive in there of, because all this Catholic Church stuff is
It's
coming
like
out, you know, these big
5,000
bishops.
years worth of child porn. Some of it's just drawn.
Well, who knows? I mean, all sorts of stuff. But the whole building just went up in flames like all at once.
When was this? Like recently?
3 days ago or
Wow.
something.
Wow.
Yeah, there's less page.
Yeah. Well, it was just after that bishop, all the bishops are now going to the Pope and saying, we need to do something. We need to make changes here because this is just out of control. There's just way too much of it.
Yeah, well, in that Pennsylvania grand jury report where they named the 300 priests, offenders and 1,000 victims, it talks about. I read the whole report; it's 900 pages. It talks about how they were producing child pornography on the church grounds and then circulating amongst themselves. So it's an elaborate operation. And when you look at the lengths they go to, they're picking out kids and they give them these chains with these crosses on them, so other priests know that these kids are ripe to be victims. Like this is they're consumed by this. This is what they're doing all day long. This is their main focus of their life is to be committing these crimes.
Well, it was saying in there, one of the things was that they would sorry, I lost my train of thought there on the last part.
Consumed is a good word. That's, it's compelled almost. It's weird.
Oh, that they were keeping a secret record of the whole thing. So they were telling all the authorities and everybody, oh, we don't keep any record about the priests in there with the children. But actually they were taking extremely detailed reports and keeping them as in an archive in the Vatican. So that's what I'm saying.
That might have burned or something.
It may have been part of.
It might have been
yeah.
like, this is like, we can't keep the doors off this much longer. We got to take care of the evidence or something.
I don't know. That's just kind of a gut feeling about the whole thing because it all happened in within like 3 days of each other.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Ed?
Well, it's just so discouraging, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any direct connection. It's Rio de Janeiro, right? In Brazil, that's where that big museum is.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And I don't know if there's a direct connection between that and this Pennsylvania thing. But if you read just the first 16 pages of that grand jury report, there's a lot more than 1,000 victims, and there's a lot more than 300 priests, and all the information that they have in that report was stuff that the church actually turned over to them. So there could be 10 times, and there was only 2 arrests, by the way. People think this is they're rounding up pedos or something. No one was rounded up. They made 2 arrests in that whole giant case. So it's just business as usual. Nothing changed whatsoever.
And the real disturbing thing is not just that that trauma that's created in that moment, but it's ruining the future of humanity. I mean, you have all these kids growing up that have been abused, or maybe they're not even alive anymore. I mean, who knows how bad it gets? But I mean, it's the trauma that comes years later. I mean, it really affects the future of humanity.
I was reading a report based on all this that there was a guy who Corzine, or I know that's not quite right, but he had put together a psychological study of, I think it was like 600 priests to find out if they were heterosexual or homosexual. And he found that 40% admit to homosexual tendencies, which is a lot for the Catholic Church priests. Like in the general population, it's less than 10%.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, it was definitely a haven for homosexuals, to go into the Catholic Church. And if you go back and you look at even further, by the way, this Pennsylvania thing was only a few dioceses. It wasn't even all the dioceses, it was just only a few. But if you go back to what happened in Boston, up in the seminaries in Boston, this was so open that the priests had like Backstreet Boys posters on their wall in their rooms and stuff like that. They were all openly homosexual. And then, there's a big scandal to look up the homosexual escort service that was blackmailing the Vatican. There was a gay escort service there on the Vatican property that was blackmailing the priests at the Vatican at the highest levels.
Jesus,
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. What was it called?
I don't remember, but they were calling it Vati leaks. Vati leaks. If you look that up, you'll find that. Yeah, it's another crazy.
So what do you think's going to happen? I mean, there's people who said that this is the last pope, being that he's a Jesuit pope. coming from Argentina, which is pretty damn close to Brazil.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because we never had a pope that resigned before either. We had a pope resign. I think if you want to get into those kind of extreme theories, I think that the powers that be, or whoever they are, want us to lose faith in institutions, and they want us to lose faith in the church and the pope, and they want them to be resigning. We wouldn't have a pope resign. We might have a pope be arrested. And just like they want us to lose faith in the presidency and the Supreme Court now, even too.
Totally.
Just that everything's so unstable. I'm 55 years old, but never in my life have we lived in these kind of times.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. How old are you guys?
I'm 48. Darren's 37.
That's right.
And Michael's 43.
3 right in the middle
43.
there.
And Brody, the producer of video, there's 43. 40.
Right.
Oh, 33. 33. 33.
Ouch.
I thought I saw a 4 come up there.
But
So yeah, we're all kind of in that range.
I told my mom 10 years ago that the dollar wouldn't last for another 20 years. And she's like, never in my lifetime. That won't happen. Well, it's getting pretty freaking close right now.
You can never say anymore, never in my lifetime.
Yep.
Because you don't know what's happening next.
Yeah, and it's pretty
I
discouraging.
can tell you one thing, actually, Ed, that we won't get free energy in my lifetime.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm coming closer and closer. That ain't gonna fucking happen.
Yeah.
I think it will.
Yeah, it's discouraging too, because it seems like the media and they're just it's just tearing everybody apart and polarizing everything to the point where I don't know, I don't see it getting any better before it gets worse, really. I mean, we try and stay positive, because you can look at, there's a lot of positive stuff as well. People are connecting and sharing, like we get to chat here and share our points of view before actually this platform shut down. I mean, you never know. Maybe after this chat, we won't have a Grimerica anymore.
Fucking John Brisson ruined Grimerica by getting us together with you.
It does seem, though, like all the foundations are going to crack and crumble, and then it's all going to be like a fluid motion of consciousness rather than like monolithic pieces. It kind of seems where we are.
They can absolutely shut down these platforms overnight. They could do it in a day, where we would have, all this would be gone.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
Then fucking off to the gulag with us. They'd slowly round us up one by one and...
Like, what did YouTube?
Secret trials.
What did YouTube tell you? What did they give you as a reason of why they did that?
Oh, they never gave me any reason. The first channel, they still won't talk to me and tell me. Then the first channel had nothing bad on it. No reason. The second one, they said, well, oh no, you know what they said the second time is that I'm playing other people's work on my channel. But the only people I was playing was, I produce other hosts and I was putting some of their shows on my channel. And people I interviewed, but there was nothing. I wasn't taking anybody's work that I didn't have a right to, or anybody complaining. That's for sure.
I think that's a common first strike excuse.
Right. But I never had any strikes on either channel that got shut down. I never had any strikes. But I'll tell you something even more scary that they could shut you down. Is I hate to expose myself even more, but
we like it when you expose yourself.
Yeah. I started talking about some stuff, and they shut off my merchant account where we accept credit cards.
Oh.
Yeah. And what happened was, and that's like one company, Merchant Data Services, I think it's called, controls 60% of the world's credit card processing. Yep. They own PayPal, they own all of them.
Holy.
And it's only on like 4 satellites too.
Right. And so you can imagine how big they are, right? And when I was calling them up to talk to them about trying to get my thing back, I kept getting the same person every time I called up.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
It's just one receptionist.
It's too bad with your normal cable or any other fucking customer service, you could never get the same person twice.
Was her name Siri?
Yeah.
It gets better than that, because I kept calling up getting the same person. And at one time I called up and I was like hungover in the morning. I was like, and I was like, and she says, well, who's this? I said, it's Ed Opperman. She goes, this isn't Ed Opperman. I know his voice.
Oh my God.
Dude, that's freaky.
Yeah. So anyway, they let me have it back now. I have it back now, but I try not to poke a stick at him, because
So was there any direct connection to anything you talked about, or was this a warning shot across the bow? Like, why would they give it back to you if they took it away, do you think?
I was talking about a case I had involving Sarah Palin with an alternative media host who I found out later on works for that company. So, that's a pretty good chain.
That's a co-opted alternative media right there. Holy.
Oh no, yeah, the alternative media is totally co-opted.
Yeah.
I'm hearing these things now too, like with these YouTube channels where. By the way, we did a great show with Neil Sanders, who investigated Cambridge Analytica, and he shows how all that money flows down from the Mercers to people like Laura Loomer and Veritas, Project Veritas, all this stuff like that. He's got it all. He did a really good job on that.
Cool.
But I'm finding out too, man, that these guys with these YouTube channels, they got all these schemes going where they bring people on their show to beg for money, and then they split the money up between the host and the guy and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of shenanigans with these guys. Everybody's making money but me. You know?
What?
You got to be shady, man.
I know.
Nah. Just being honorable, and it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah, hopefully.
What's your what's your favorite thing you're working on right now? What's your most exciting like spy novel? When I think of Private Eye, I think your life's like a little spy.
Yeah, I had this really good case. I'm getting screwed out of this too. Where it's a Me Too case against a Fox News contributor, and this guy's a real pervert and a real creep, and that's pretty much the kind of stuff I look for now that I try to get into too, where we could find a victim that we could sue somebody, and then I get a piece of the lawsuit at the end. But this, I brought in a lawyer. See, because my lawyer is Keith Davidson. The lawyer I bring this stuff to is Keith Davidson, the lawyer for Stormy Daniels and stuff, and the whole Charlie Sheen thing, and Karen McDougal. Oh. He's the one I usually bring everything to, and he was so busy with all that crap.
Yeah.
And plus, we couldn't even email each other back and forth. I'm afraid to email the guy. I was sending him stuff FedEx. I'm afraid to send him stuff,
And it leaked.
Yeah, right. So I brought in some other creepy lawyer, and he just screwed me out of it. When I put the whole damn thing together. So that's one thing that's kind of exciting I'm working on. But I got this case I'm working on that too with this Nigerian scam where this woman got scammed for this money. And I tracked him down. I located the people here in the United States, and we should be able to get that money back. But the client's not very cooperative. So there's that, with stuff like that.
Man, you should help us out here in Canada with this CRA. We have this Canada Revenue Agency crank call, and all of us get this call.
Everyone knows about it.
One fraud call every day here. And yeah, and it's like there's this one from the Canadian Revenue Agency, and what do they say again, Darren? I usually I hang up so quick.
They say that you've got.
You need to call this.
First, they start off by saying that you got back taxes, you owe money for dodging taxes, and you're going to jail, and we're coming to get you. And then those guys know what they're doing, because when it was Kim said something about, he's like, look, I got to go pick up my kid. I don't have time for this right now. And they're like, oh, we're coming to get your kids, man. You're getting arrested. Your kids are getting fucking taken away.
And some people have met these people at a bank machine and then given them money, I think.
They showed up. I was reading a story the other day that they showed up at an old lady's house in like Langley, BC. And they were like dressed up as cops. And they like took her out of the house, took her to the bank, made her take out $6,000 and dropped her off at home.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we have that here too. They call from India, from Mumbai, and they say from the IRS, you owe money. But then they want you to start sending them like iTunes cards, gift cards. Go buy a Target gift card and give us the number on the back. So they don't even have their act together with a good, merchant processing.
Well, you almost want to go through it just so you can track them, so you can show up at their door and be like, "Here you go, man. Here's your pizza and a card." And
I just want to see what they buy.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, how they're still getting away with this, though? I mean, they're honestly calling every person that I know has got this call from these people. So they're calling thousands and thousands of people, millions of people. How come they haven't got caught yet? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Here they're calling from India. They're calling from India in the United States. And the thing is, too, even with this case where this woman thought that the guys were from Nigeria. See, a lot of times people think these scams are coming from Nigeria, but a lot of them trace back to the United States, or they trace back to Israel, because he's based out of Israel a lot of times, too. So people think, well, it's impossible. I'll never catch them. They just give up. And unless it's here in the States, unless it's a lot of money, it used to be like $10,000, but now unless it's like $50,000, $60,000, the FBI doesn't even get involved. They don't care.
Yep. Yep. I think it's just like kids, just like local kids, and
No,
they
this
kind of
is-
pass it around. They pass it around like, oh yeah, here, this is a fun thing to do tonight.
No, I don't think so. I think it's way more.
The CRA thing is pretty intense.
So you guys are in Canada?
Yeah, we're in close to Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have to deal with any gang stalkers at all or anything like that? Is that a legit thing? I keep hearing about these things, and I wonder what are these people thinking? Like, they're getting gang stalked and all that.
I'm gonna set up a gang stalk on you. You can see how it feels, Graham.
No, I'm not trying to describe it. I'm just wondering. Ed's a PI. I mean.
Yeah, my whole life we've gotten those calls. Okay, way, way, way back from when I was a kid back in Brooklyn, we used to get those calls. People who think they're being spied on 24 hours a day, and their phones are tapped. In fact, one of the things we used to do back in Brooklyn, back in the late 70s and the 80s, was we would do bug sweeps for organized crime. So we get those calls. I've gotten those calls for years, and it's such a huge operation for someone to think that they're being surveilled in real time, and there's so many people involved. First thing I say is, well, who do you know that has like $100,000 a month to pay to fund this to go after you?
The government, Ed. It's always got to be the government.
Okay, but even the government, man, you got to have a big operation, man. Even the government, isn't expending this money on someone for no reason, just to harass them, or people, they think just, well, because I'm making phone calls into radio shows, or I'm on Reddit. You know what I mean? That's all nonsense. Or you hear a lot of these alternative media hosts talking about, whoa, the NSA is messing with my Skype connection. You know what I mean? That's 99% is that crap. Because
sometimes they mess with our Skype.
Well, no, I'll tell you this. Okay, I was involved in a case with Sarah Palin. Okay, and Todd Palin, and it went on right up until the day she announced that she wasn't going to run for president. Okay. And when I was involved in that, and you can read about this in National Enquirer and stuff like that. I'm in a book called "Boys Will Be Boys," a case against Todd Palin, and it ultimately wound up to a congressional investigation here in the United States. But okay, fine. I was working on that, and I was in the middle of that, and I was being infiltrated by foreign intelligence agencies. Okay, real people. I can go back and look at their life right now and see them. That they're at embassies, and they were at the Arab Spring in Egypt, when the government's being overthrown, they're over there, and you look back and you say, oh my God, these people I was involved with were involved in all these other things. They're definitely intelligence people, and my house was broken into at the time. But that's, kind of a big deal. You know what I mean? I was involved in a big operation, and without a lot of people around me. There weren't a lot of people helping me on that job. So I could see that happening. But just the average guy on Reddit, I don't think they give a damn about him.
So is there any legitimacy to the gang stalking thing, though? I mean, have you found any that have, that there is something nefarious going on with?
No. I've never really, and even too, I have a service that I sell on my website where I could monitor your email account and see if anybody else is reading your emails. Mm-hmm. And even that, I've never, we've caught husbands spying on their wives, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But never like, or we've had other cases too, when companies spying on other companies, but never like a big gang stalking type operation. And those people too, when you talk to them, you can kind of just tell they're crazy.
So you've been doing this 30 years?
Yeah, I'm 55 years old, and I got started around 1979, 1980, because I had access to sources in the phone company that I could get people's phone records, and I was selling that to all the different PIs and stuff like that around Brooklyn and Manhattan and stuff, and bill collectors and bounty hunters, bail bondsman types and stuff.
Did you have a red Ferrari and live in a mansion on Hawaii?
No, I did have a convertible Mustang. Wait, I owned a club in Manhattan. I
had a really great mustache.
No, I never could. I've had a beard, but never a nice mustache, a porn star mustache. But I have, what do you call it? I owned a nightclub in Manhattan. I ran with the Bulls in Spain.
Cool.
And I've testified for Congress. I've done a few things.
Wow.
Death penalty cases, yeah. Big organized crime cases. I was part of the Pizza Connection case and the commission case in New York back in the 80s. Giuliani was the prosecutor in those cases, and so was Chertoff. Chertoff was the assistant prosecutor.
Well, all that aside, what was the craziest shit ever? Craziest case, 30 years.
Yeah, I don't know, man. What I would think is the craziest probably isn't what the average person thinks. I had a couple of blackmail cases where my clients were being blackmailed and stuff like that got touch and go. All those cases, the big ones like Tiger Woods, that stuff. I did all the cell phones on the Tiger Woods case. I did a case with Ashton Kutcher. Wienergate, I did Wienergate. I did all the phones on Wienergate. So that stuff. I had a crazy case with the New York Yankees. But little things like, I have this little service on my website where I invented this investigation where if you think your husband's cheating on you, you give me his email address and I trace it back to online dating websites. And one time I traced the guy back to gay.com on a gay website. And his wife says, no way my husband's gay. We have 6 kids. So I went and I found the ad, and the guy was sitting there naked with a baseball cap. He's talking about what a tight asshole he has. Okay, so that's one of my favorite cases to talk about, when you talk about crazy cases.
And that was him?
Yeah, it was him. We found the guy, yeah. He was naked with a baseball cap, and he says his asshole is really tight.
So was she okay with it because it wasn't about with another chick?
Wait, do you still have that? Can I send you?
No, you can't have it.
Can I give you an email address?
Yeah, you still got the service.
Oh, yeah.
But no.
Okay.
He's already checked us all out, Darren. He's already checked us all out.
Did you check us out already? Did you do background on us before you came on the show?
Nah, I didn't even. I just when you had me on and said it was going to be live, I checked the website, but that's it.
Can we punch Graham's email into that thing and see what comes up?
Yeah, find some good stuff, man.
It's all exposed anyways, Darren. There's nothing left.
I tell you though, that poor wife, the one with the 6 kids, when I found the gay picture, I called her up because she was arguing with me, and that's anyway. And I called her and I says, "Look, here it is, see?" And here I am thinking, boy, I did a great job, but for her, it's kind of tore her whole life up,
What year was that?
Oh, that was a long time ago. That was when I first started doing that. That was like around 2000, 2003, around that time.
I don't think that would be as big a deal now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So what are some of the other services that you regularly do then for?
Oh, well, let's see. I'm trying to get these lawsuits now because I'm trying to make some money. Extortion cases, client being extorted, cell phone forensics. They send me the cell phones. We recovered deleted text messages, email tracing, locating and identifying people from an email address. Stuff like that, and asset searches. Okay, asset searches. I'm doing great asset searches. Find a lot of stuff from that. Adoption investigations. Off the top of my head, that's pretty much it. Locates, simple stuff.
How much would it cost me? You think to locate a guy in the UK who I
seen a UFO with?
Yeah. If I could crowdfund enough to get that David Miller in the UK.
Probably only cost a couple $100, right?
Well, no, name like Miller.
I know it's David Miller. It's like the most popular name ever.
That's right. Yeah. What do you call it? No, if it's an unusual name, then yeah, you could find them. Like one time, I had to find this guy in Saudi Arabia, but we located him in Canada because he had a very unusual name. Oh, wow. Stuff like that. Yeah. But if it's a common name, it could be.
It's
brutal.
Tough. Yeah.
Yeah, you need like a date of birth or something. You got an email address. Sometimes you can get that if you have an email address form or some kind of website or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
You don't have his birthday?
I have his home phone number, probably like his old home phone number from 1990.
From 1980?
1990.
Yeah, but that might still work.
I've tried it all. I've tried all that.
He really needs validation on this UFO site.
Well, if you really, really had to, you could just create some kind of a lawsuit and then subpoena the phone records from the phone company.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
How much does that cost?
Well, I'd have to look it up and give you an estimate. But the thing is, with enough time and money, you can find anybody.
Yeah.
But it's you can do it, but it's just someone has to fund it.
I was really thinking, the thing I was thinking of is I just gotta every night I have to say his name and visualize me contacting him, and maybe through divine intervention. He contacts me because it's in the ether. Like I really.
Well, now, they have this thing where people Google their own name, so you could set up a trap form that way. We did that, we did that with this woman. She had lost her husband took away custody of her son when he was very small, And then we'd set up a Facebook page. So then when he would Google his own name, we had, hey, man, we're looking for you. You know, your mother's looking for you.
There you go.
So,
make a David Miller Facebook page. Graham misses you. 1980. Hello.
90.
Let's talk before you go live.
Yeah.
Get our story straight.
So you want to talk about your radio show a little bit, Ed, and what you do there?
Well, sure. Got to do a radio show.
Glad you have it in the podcast format too, because that's, I mean, for me, that's the way to digest the stuff.
Yeah. On podcast format, we're on iHeart and iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, all that kind of stuff. It's on YouTube, like we were saying before. It's on KYAH 540 AM Monday to Saturday, 6 days a week, morning drive time. So we reach a lot of people that way. And I do a lot of true crime, like you said. You know, I try and bring a lot of true crime stuff, conspiracy stuff. We just did a show about the Finders. We have one coming up about McMartin. I just had on Craig Unger, who wrote the book about House of Putin, House of Trump. He wrote that book too, House of Bush, House of Saud. So got him on. He's a New York Times bestselling author.
Anything on the House of Clinton?
Oh, I do a lot of stuff on Clinton. I've done a lot of stuff on the Clintons, man. All stuff about the Haiti. I've had on every single one of those women that Bill Clinton raped. Every single one.
Really?
Oh yeah. I know all of them. I knew Paula Jones because we had the same agent. Her agent was Gina Rodriguez too, the one with the Tiger Woods stuff and Stormy Daniels. She was the one in Wienergate too. So I've known Paula Jones for years, and I'll tell you a funny story. Because I had them all on: Kathleen Willey, Paula Jones, Juanita Broderick, and I also had on my show Kathy O'Brien, who claims that she was raped by Hillary Clinton. So the day of the Trump debate on October 19th.
Okay. Yeah.
The one where you had all those women in the room.
Yeah.
There, surprise. Okay. So I get a call from a guy, right? And he says, "Hey Ed, I'm over here with Roger Stone, and we want Kathy O'Brien's phone number and contact information. Can you get it for us?" And I says, "Yeah, sure, I'll get it for you. You know, if you're talking, if you're over there with Stone." I says, "Well, show him all my anti-Clinton shows. Show him my Clinton shows." So he goes, yeah, I'll do that. So, we're over here because it was the same day that the Access Hollywood tape came out.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, you know who leaked the Access Hollywood tape? It was Kellyanne Conway, because she's a CIA agent. So that's what they were saying over there the day of the debate over there. They were thinking that Kellyanne Conway leaked the Access Hollywood tape because she was working for the CIA.
That's crazy. So that it could just muddy the waters, because that timing was very interesting. With what was the other thing that happened that same day? I guess, right? Was the debate, or what was?
The debate was the same day, but you're right. Something else came out that same day too. I forget what it was, but it was a crazy day for sure.
Oh, the email. I think it was the email scandal. Might have been the deleted emails. Something big came out.
Yeah, it was something connected to all that stuff too. All that Russian stuff too as well.
Yeah.
Imran.
Not bigger than grabbing by the pussy, though.
Juan.
Oh, well, no, that's what he's talking about. So that came out to distract from this other story,
That's a pretty good
the other way
distraction.
around. Actually,
Pretty good distraction.
Yeah, it's hard to know what came out first, because I think both sides say one came out first.
It was a blur.
Yeah. So what's the Trump and the House of Trump and Putin like then?
I got to tell you, man. I was talking to this guy, and he's. What do you guys think about this? I'm totally convinced that Trump is not only colluding with the Russians and it was laundering money for the Russians and stuff like that, which is basically the focus of the book is about Trump and his connections to organized crime and Felix Sater. I stumble upon this other thing this week, though. Ted Rubenstein sends me this link to this YouTube of this organized crime guy from New York City, who's dead now, by the way, too. The guy just died in the past year. Ted Rubenstein is the guy who used to work for Mae Brussels, and he worked for Dave Emery, and he was a writer for Larry Flint Publications. So he's a really good source, always sending me good stuff. And he sends me this YouTube video, and this guy's going on, man. And this guy knew all about Flynn doing all that stuff with Turkey and stuff. He knew all this stuff before it was in the news, because this is an obscure YouTube video. And the guy's dead now, like I said. And it's very interesting that he was talking about Felix Sater, you know, and then Felix Sater's connections to Trump, and which is also what Craig Unger was talking about too. Felix Sater is this Russian mobster guy who was friends with Michael Cohen from when he was a kid, and involved in all kinds of shenanigans, this big pump and dump stock deal, where he got away with everything because he became an informant for the FBI and an informant for the CIA. And Loretta Lynch wrote him a letter of recommendation to get out of going to prison. Okay, this guy got some sweetheart deal. Then he goes to work for Trump, creating this Bayrock deal where Trump puts his name on all these hotels and stuff like that. He doesn't have to do any work or anything. That was all run by Felix Sater. And get this, the same FBI agent that was Felix Sater's handler who arrested him later on becomes one of Trump's bodyguards. Yeah. But what really jumped out at me from this YouTube video from this guy, this organized crime guy who's dead now in New York, is he starts talking about how Felix Sater was buddies, really close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So, now I had never heard that before, you know, but I do know that you know, Epstein's up to his neck with Trump. That's 100% sure. I'm positive about that. I'm positive that Epstein has interference. Mossad runs interference for Jeffrey Epstein. I'm positive about that. He was doing all kind of blackmail stuff too, like that. With Trump. By the way, one of his main victims, Epstein's main victims, that girl Virginia Roberts, worked for Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So the connection between Trump and Epstein go deep.
Yeah, and deep and long.
Right.
Well, the Clinton,
no, it's true. But it goes back. Like
but Epstein had dirt on everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his thing, is he set up that island so that
Like,
he
by
could
the way,
bring
all these
people
girls
there.
are only 17.
So he could bring people there, survey the whole thing, and get dirt on everyone. And from what I understand, it was more of like Clintons were more so buddies with Epstein. And Trump just kind of got caught up in it because the billionaire club was pretty small 20 years ago. So I don't know.
Okay, you got to go back. When I did my first show on Jeffrey Epstein about 4.5 years ago, I went around looking for a guest who could talk about it, and there was no one. No one was talking about Jeffrey Epstein when I started talking about
He
this.
had dirt on everyone.
Exactly. And when you go to his, go to my website, I have on there the 24-page letter exclusively. By the way, no one else has it. It's on my website in the members section. The 24-page letter where Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, Jerry Lefcourt, says that he, by the way, who used to be Abby Hoffman's attorney, Jerry Lefcourt, okay? But Jerry Lefcourt says that Jeffrey Epstein helped the Clintons create the Clinton Foundation. Now, I agree with you. He's up to his neck with the Clintons. It's 100% fact. As a matter of fact, when Clinton was on his plane, he was on there with Kevin Spacey and a porn star, and also Chris Tucker. Okay, Chris Tucker, by the way, has his own private plane, and Chris Tucker was flying around that little boy that Michael Jackson was molesting. Okay, the day that Martin Bashir the documentary came out, Jackson gets on the phone, tells Chris Tucker, go pick up this kid and fly him out of town. Okay, Chris Tucker goes and does it. All right. So this is Bill Clinton is on the plane too. By the way, too, Courtney Love was on there too. It's a small world, right? We have Courtney Love involved in this thing too. She's on one of Epstein's planes too. But the problem is, okay, is that all the stuff you see in the papers and the news about this is they want you to focus on the plane, which they call the Lolita Express. They've given it that nickname, and they want you to focus on the island, okay? But what's really going on with this, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of Mossad interference in this thing. The Mossad called me up, okay? Victor Ostrovsky, look him up, is the publisher for Conchita Sarnoff, who wrote the book about Jeffrey Epstein, who was friends with Epstein and friends with Trump. So they want you to look at this island, and they want you to look at this stupid plane and the manifest on the plane. There's a lot of celebrities on the plane. There's a lot of powerful politicians on the plane. A lot of people went to the island. But the thing is what these crimes, where they were really taking place, was in Manhattan, next door to Bill Cosby's house, by the way. And because Epstein bought one of the most expensive pieces of property in Manhattan from Leslie Wexler, the guy who owns Victoria's Secret and The Limited and all this kind of stuff, right? Because that's supposedly that's Epstein's only client. And he lives right next door to Bill Cosby. So they want you to think most stuff is going on down there in this island, in the Virgin Islands, and on this plane. But it was going on in Manhattan, and it was going on in Palm Beach, walking distance from Mar-a-Lago. We know for a fact there's pictures of Trump, Prince Andrew, and Epstein at Mar-a-Lago at a tennis tournament down there. Right? We know this for a fact because we have the title came up in a docusearch. So, and like I said too, Epstein was molesting Trump's employee. You know, so the connections are galore. But there's a lot of misinformation that published about this. And a lot of disinfo that goes out. But again, just like Pizzagate too and stuff like that, they have a whole operation that they put together.
Yeah.
Disinfo operations.
You have to. Got to keep it murky.
Yeah, I can tell you this exclusive. Okay, that there's a connection too between Epstein investigation and what do you call it? Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal.
So if Epstein's connected to Mossad, then is Stormy Daniels connected to Mossad?
No, the people involved with Stormy Daniels and McDougal are money motivated. They're only involved. They go to both ends. They go after Republicans and Democrats. They don't care.
Where I come from, both ends mean something different.
Especially in context here.
Yes.
I gotta start watching what I say with this guy, man. I gotta watch everything.
So yeah, and you've also even talked to models and people that have been directly like hit on by Trump and stuff like that. So you get a lot of interesting guests on.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, I had on two of them. The BBC just came out with a documentary called "Trump Is the President a Sex Pest?" Right, which is like we would call him a creeper over here. They call him a pest over there in the UK. BBC, and the first one was Barbara. I forget her name. But she was at a party, a really creepy party where Trump was there, and they were giving a bunch of little 16-year-old girls alcohol and stuff like that. But this other one, Pilling is her last name. I forget her first name. That might be Barbara Pilling. The other one might be Heather. But Barbara Pilling was at a party where Trump hit on her when she was 16 years old. Trump hit on her directly. He thought she was 17, but she was 16. And when he found out she was 17, he was still hitting on her. And what happened after that was she found out just through the grapevine that Trump Sr. was dating a 17-year-old model named Nadia who lived in Manhattan. So that's exclusive to my show. No one reported that.
Trump Sr., who's that?
Donald Trump, yeah.
Okay. I was wondering why. So you asked us what we thought about the Trump-Russia thing. And what confuses me, like what I don't understand about it is, with all the extreme hate from the mainstream media against Trump and all the, they're just, and how long this investigation's been going on, apparently, and why can't they talk about some of this real stuff that you're talking about, like some of this real big stuff? I mean, it just seems like they're just focusing on this little insignificant sort of bullshit. And I mean, it makes you wonder, is it all just it's hard to believe it's a distraction because it feels so real, the hate for him.
Well, I'll tell you this. One thing that I know for a fact that Mueller is not looking into is he's not looking into the connections between Trump and Epstein. And he's not looking into these connections between Trump and this Katie Doe, the little 13-year-old girl that he raped back in the 80s. He's not talking about that. Mueller's not looking into that because I know these lawyers, and I know Davidson's cooperating. Davidson didn't tell me directly, but he's cooperating with Mueller. And I talked to some of these other lawyers, and I asked them, and they said no, we've never been contacted by Mueller. So I know Mueller's not looking into this. And one reason why I'm starting to believe that is right now is because I find out that Felix Sater, who is an informant and buddies with Mueller and buddies with Comey, is up to his neck in that Epstein stuff, allegedly, according to this dead guy. And maybe I'll be the next dead guy coming up here, So there's that. The stuff, there's these real connections. I did some really good shows. Go back and look at Grant Stern. Grant Stern is a great guest. He looked into all this stuff with a company, a Russian oil company called Rosneft, Rosneft. And if you type in Rosneft, it'll come up right away. It autofills Trump. So there's these connections between Trump and Rosneft are well known. And that's who Carter Page admitted he was going to Russia to meet with, the head of Rosneft, because Russia was privatizing their oil business. There was going to be $1 trillion business, tons of money funneling through this company. And all these characters are involved. Sater, Carter Page, all of them. All the same characters. So I know you're not seeing a lot of stuff come out, highly in the public, these little Russian connections, but I'm confident that, and I'm confident 100% everything in the Steele dossier too. And I'm confident that in the end.
In the Steele dossier too, you think?
Yes, yeah, I know, because you're hearing over and over. You hear these guys, Hannity, over and over saying, "Oh, it's a dodgy dossier." There's nothing in there dodgy. Read it. Carter Page confirms 90% that's in there. And some of the stuff I can confirm my own experience.
Is that the peeing on the hotel bed one?
Yes, and for the peeing on the hotel, the Pissgate thing, there's 4 independent witnesses who came up with that story. Who's going to come up? How are you going to find 4 different people who don't know each other and that are going to come up with that same story about pissing? You'll come up with a different story, that he raped a dog or something. You know what I mean? You're not going to come up with the pissing story. It's too much coincidence. And Keith Schiller, Trump's NYPD bodyguard, he came out and said, well, they did offer us hookers, but we told them no. And then I stood out in front of the door and I guarded the door for a little bit of the night. Then I went to bed. Okay, so even he's covering his tracks. Okay, and then also too, Trump first he lies about it. And he says, no, we left Russia. We didn't even sleep there that night. So that conflicts with what Schiller says, and it conflicts with the flight logs. Then also too, they came up with this whole thing. I'm convinced. And I just had a little beef with your friend there, Brisson. You know that guy, John Brisson?
Yeah.
JB, yeah. So did Graham, had a little beef with him too.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
Graham's got heavy Trump love, so he's going to have beef with you by the time you're done this little rant.
I like Graham. I like Graham a lot. But what do you call it? Because I'm convinced that the whole, what is it? The whole Reddit troll, the 4chan troll about Pissgate and
QAnon?
QAnon too, but you know what I'm talking about. The whole thing when the day that the whole Steele dossier came out, they had it all ready to go. That no, this is a 4chan troll that we had going on, and the phrase Pissgate had been search engine optimized prior to that date. So Trump had to know that one day this story was going to come out, and he had that whole troll thing all set up, ready to go to discredit the Steele dossier when it came out.
Well, it's hard to find a better fucking troll than Donald Trump, that's for sure. Like, he's the master.
Paw Patrol.
Yeah, master troll, Paw Patrol.
It's pretty fitting that he's the head of the U.S. because, I mean, there's a lot of trollery going on.
Trollery. I like that.
You think he's even a real person?
So, but why can't they pick up on this though? I don't understand. Like, there's so much bullshit. Like,
well, the thing is, listen, they've been investigating this for a short time. You know, you got a lot of data in the Steele dossier. There's a lot of data. If you, like I said, Grant Stern, Rosneft. If you Google that, it'll clear up. It'll make you understand why all these pieces fit and why a lot of these people aren't talking about it, because a lot of them are getting money from this Rosneft operation.
Jesus.
How do we get some money from the Rosneft?
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Stop talking about it. So I wonder. So it's also very disheartening though, because there's so much bullshit on both sides. That what are the American people gonna do after this? Like, no matter what happens, the veil's been lifted, and it's just fuckery afoot everywhere. Like we're watching from close by up here in Canada, and we've got our own issues for sure. But what's gonna happen down there?
Well, I tell you, I don't know if you're following the news, what's going on today with the anonymous story of the op-ed piece in the New York Times. Are you aware of that?
Yeah. Do you think that's real? To me, that looked like a plant.
Is that the guy who came out and said that he was QAnon?
No. Do you
think it's real?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
whoa, wait. I'm not. Slow down. I'm not up to speed here. So what are we talking about?
Well, basically what happened was a high level... what's the wording on this? Is a
senior cabinet
spy,
right? Senior a White House official, right? Wrote an anonymous op-ed piece in the New York Times. Okay, and he's basically saying that, hey, Trump is half a nut, incompetent, and amoral. And we're keeping an eye on him, and we sabotage his craziness, and we're keeping him on the rails. So, which is, historic for someone who works for the President of the United States in the White House to write this anonymous piece saying basically, hey, the president of the United States is crazy and impulsive, but don't worry, we've got him under control. This is unheard of, and this is on the level of a coup. That we're watching a coup in process.
So you don't think that's Trump trolling again?
Yeah, but yesterday they did the same thing with Kelly, and they said they came out and Kelly said that he's an idiot and he doesn't know what's going on. And then by the end of the day, Kelly comes out and says, I didn't say any of that. They made that up.
No. Well, yeah, but that's Bob Woodward, who's from the Watergate days.
Right.
Who wrote that book. And his, listen, okay, I've got my own problems with Bob Woodward, okay? And if you go back and listen to the shows I've done with Len Kolodny, who's written books. In fact, he has the website, Watergate.com. And he's been in a battle with Bob Woodward, and he has his own theories about Woodward's involvement. Because Woodward does have an intelligence background, a military intelligence background. And Len Kolodny has his own theories about that. So as far as Woodward's background, I don't trust that, but he is credible enough that he's going to make sure he has his facts lined up.
Ooh,
I don't blame. What's that?
I don't know about that.
But then Kelly came out and said, I didn't say any of those things.
Well, what do you expect him to say? He's got Trump breathing down his neck. Plus, what do you expect him to say?
I don't know. Why would you post it anonymously? That's the main thing. That takes away all of it right there.
No. The book is not anonymous. The book.
No. He's talking about the article.
The op-ed.
The op-ed.
Well, the op-ed. Well, obviously, the New York Times is not going to publish. The New York Times has verified who the anonymous person is.
So they say.
Yeah, but have they not
how
been
are we
caught
supposed
up?
to verify
How
that?
have they not been caught up in enough lies that how do you even trust anything that comes out?
Why would they post anything anonymously? Because that immediately discredits everything they're saying.
Well,
I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. Like, if you're willing to come out and say that, then you need to have the balls to put your name behind it.
Well, I would agree with you with that.
And your phone number.
That ultimately, I believe that the anonymous author will become public and will, and that this is going to wind up in congressional hearings and impeachment processes.
Yeah.
There's no way Trump is going to survive this. So whether you love him or you hate him or what, he's just not going to survive this. And if you go back and look way back in the primary, I predicted he was going to wind up in prison. Okay. He just cannot withstand the kind of scrutiny to his life, to everything this guy's been involved with over the years.
It is possible. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it would be difficult for any businessman of his stature to.
You think the next guy will pardon him?
I just think if there's that much dirt
think
on him,
Pence will pardon him?
We would have heard a lot more of the actual dirt. Like, how would he have made it through the election?
That's kind of what I'm getting at is
the Clintons have a ton of dirt on them.
You think Pence will pardon him?
Pence probably will pardon him, but there's things that he can't pardon him for. Crimes in New York State crimes. The federal government can't pardon state crimes, and there's plenty of that too with the Trump Foundation and even Trump University and stuff. Trump's got crime and Trump modeling, and Trump's got crimes coming out of his ears, money laundering and stuff like that. There's just no doubt. His connections to Adnan Khashoggi, selling his yacht back and forth and. All that shenanigans that was going on. So, and I agree with you. Listen, I'm no fan of the Clintons. I'm not a Democrat,
Oh yeah, totally. I'm not saying you are. It's just
right. And I'm no fan. And Trump, when I was telling you the story before of when Roger Stone was calling me that day, I turned over all my Clinton shows to them, and I've known Giuliani since the 80s with all the organized crime cases in New York City, and I knew when he was running for mayor. We were friends back in those days. But the thing is that I sent them all my Clinton stuff, and I believe they used my Clinton information as part of Trump's speeches back in those days, because Julian definitely would have recognized my name. But now, but you're saying it would have come out already. Like I said, a lot of stuff has come out, and even I'll give you an example. There was the Katie Doe lawsuit, the lawsuit where Trump raped the 13-year-old girl, right? Now that was well known, okay? And when Lisa Bloom took over that lawsuit, there was going to be a press conference the week of November, a few days before the election. And what happened is Lisa Bloom's website and the live stream website both came under DDoS attacks, and they were shut down. Now, if you read the Steele dossier, it talks about how Trump has access to these Ukraine Russian hackers who can divert porn traffic and shut down websites. Okay. Now, so the girl, Katie Doe, was so terrified over this that she said, I'm not going ahead with this lawsuit. I'm going to drop this. Now, when Trump won, Sean Hannity on his radio show, and I heard this with my own ears, says, hey, we dodged a bullet this week. And this is what he's talking about. He goes, Epstein. So people are aware of these things going on, but and it is out there all over the place.
Yeah, I guess it's just not being made such a big deal as like Stormy Daniels and such.
Right.
So is this what it seems where it's sort of a rhetorical question, but is this globalism versus nationalism? I mean, is it less about the left and right that really is there a battle over our freedoms going on?
Well, I don't think people have this theory that Trump is somehow not a globalist himself. But if you look at some of the people, he had Goldman Sachs running his State Department there. He had Exxon running the State Department. Tillerson what's his name?
Yeah. He's got that. He's surrounded by it, but with the moves he's making, it does seem like he's legitimately pulling away from that.
He's got Wilbur Ross running the Commerce Department. He's had Henry Kissinger in his office advising him. What do you think he's pulling away for? What moves do you think he's making?
Well, pulling out of Paris for one thing.
But Deutsche Bank is who he owes most of his money to, and Netanyahu. And Kissinger really, he's been the coordinating for every president for the last 15 or 16 presidents. That dude's really old.
Yeah, right. And you're right. And Trump has totally given in to Israel too. He just cut off funding to the Palestinians.
Yeah.
I can't see, people have this theory that he's not a globalist. Look at his relationship with the Anand Khashoggi. It's all there.
It's so hard to tell now.
Well, yeah, because the news media.
I'm not saying I don't think he's not a globalist. I just think it's a different. He's caused such a ruckus that it does seem like there's a fight over America's freedom. I mean, to me, it's the petrodollar is breaking up, so the whole global order is beginning to fracture and break up. And so now it's an all-out war to get as much into your pocket as possible before the next phase. And so they're all battling each other. And the deep state definitely does not like Trump. So, but that doesn't mean that Trump is our friend. It just means that, there's this huge fight going on. And we're just the kids trying not to get damaged by the whole thing.
We think it's our fault.
Yeah, that's right.
That CIA legacy, but from the George Bush to Bush Jr. to Clinton to Obama, all CIA. Sure, they're no fans of Trump. Okay, but Trump kind of strikes me as this guy like he sees how Putin had his gangsters and stuff like that and took over the whole Russian economy for his own fiefdom. And this is what me and Craig Unken were talking about, that he thinks that this is Trump's attitude, because Trump thinks, hey, well, why can't I do that here? Why? Who cares that no one's done it before? I'll just take a cut of everything.
Yeah.
I also
and guys it as freedom and building, America first and all that kind of stuff, which might also be the case, but that's how he'll build that.
Well, he came in with no political currency at all, so he had to build a base somehow. So you have to pander to somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's all analytics as to how we're going to win this, And he's been a real estate tycoon in New York City for how many years? How could you not have connections to the mob?
Oh, no. Yeah, but the couple of things with that is, I'm from New York,
Yeah, no offense.
Yeah.
No. They get mobbed up.
I'm just trying to say, I've seen The Godfather.
I worked on all those. My early career as a private investigator was working all organized crime cases. The PI I worked for in Brooklyn was all organized crime stuff. That's all we did. Bug sweeps, all that kind of stuff.
Finding people for the mob so that they can visit them?
Well, that too. Yeah, we would work defense, criminal defense for organized crime cases, and part of that is locating people. Plus, I mentioned before, I was in the nightclub business in New York City in the '80s, so I'm very familiar with this area. Okay, very familiar. Now, so Trump, yes, of course, he has New York City organized crime ties. His attorney was Roy Cohen, who was the lawyer for all these big mob families back then too, total fixer type character. and all that kind of stuff. So Trump definitely has organized crime ties. There's no doubt about that. So did his father. But as far as him being like this big savvy businessman, he really doesn't have that reputation in New York. He was sort of a clown, this character who just got a lot of press attention for himself and kind of failed at everything he did. His casinos failed. A lot of his projects failed. They were failure projects mostly. And then he was pretty much dead broke and didn't really become successful more recently until he had that TV show, The Apprentice, which was fake. It was a fake TV show, and that's where he made a lot of cash. And then this Russian guy, Felix Sater, came in with the Bayrock organization that said, hey, let's put your name on everything. Trump Steaks and Trump Water and Trump Apartments over here and Trump Hotels over there, which he has no ownership of. So really, the guy's a con man. Trump University was a con game. It was a theft. So this, I'm really surprised that you guys really think that he was like the successful businessman. He really never was.
Well, I don't know. He's had hundreds of businesses and dozens of them have gone bankrupt. So, but I agree with pretty much everything you just said. And what really kind of got me was when he did his big financial, restructuring thing, and he had all the congressmen there, and Congressman Don Young was there, and he says, I even heard that there's this Anwar thing that I knew nothing about. And I said, well, why aren't you drilling there? Go ahead, you can open it. And Don Young, I lived in Alaska, Don Young, that was his thing that he was trying to get done before he died, and he's been in Congress like 30 years or more, who knows. And his whole thing was trying to get Anwar opened and never could, not through the Bushes or any of that. So with Trump just coming in and writing him a blank check to open Anwar without knowing anything about it, that to me it kind of showed that Trump he really does just shoot from the hip. He doesn't actually do his research to see if all these pieces fit. He just has an agenda like everyone else, and he's moving forward, and I don't know.
Yeah, he's just going to steal everything that's not nailed down.
Maybe. He's also ending there's a lot of corruption cases that are coming up that wouldn't have come up, I think.
Well, give me an example.
Well, for one, I think my take on the Russian-Trump collusion is that the reason that it's taken Mueller 2 years to get this done is because they're going to open a massive can of worms, and it's going to take down a whole lot of people. So it's like a massive investigation over lots of like Epstein type people. An example of some corruption, I don't know, they're rounding up lots of MS-13 gang members supposedly that they didn't used to. I don't know. I'm not like a PI and I can't verify any of this stuff. I have to actually read it online. So
yeah, he's definitely going after these MS-13 guys. That's for sure. He's going after these brown skin kind of, you know what I mean? But
brown skin, whatever skin. But MS-13 looks like a pretty scary thing to have in your neighborhood. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but the other thing too is, MS-13 isn't a big gang in the United States. It's like 1% of all the gangs we have. We have gangs, different kind of gangs. It's MS-13.
It fits in with the wall.
It's true.
Yeah. Like if I was to be concerned about a gang here in Nevada, Las Vegas, the last person I'd be concerned about was MS-13.
Yeah. Who's be number one? U.S. government?
Yeah, you know what, man?
The
absolutely.
BLM.
The number one gang here is the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, and we just had a show on 2 weeks ago about Eric Scott. This guy who was a West Point graduate, a white guy that was shot down by the cops. So they covered the whole thing up. So those are the first ones I'm concerned with is, the cops.
It is hard to tell. And, John, when I had John Brisson on my show, he kind of really pointed out to me the CNP, the Council of National Policy, and how that's really against the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations. And so a lot of the information that it's true that I've gotten over the last, I don't know, however many years has been more coming from the CNP.
Well, that's kind of what I meant by like, in a way, nationalist versus globalist.
Right.
Is it doesn't mean that Trump's not a globalist or that there's not connections globally, because everything's connected globally. But is it about bringing more power to the nations instead of like a one world government charging?
Well, he uses Twitter for everything and then disses Twitter for everything. And he uses I thought one of the great things is how he got so much free advertisement on during the election. I thought that was brilliant, whether they're all inclusion or not. But
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. All the free advertising was strange, and we went to his rallies really, really early on. And I remember one of the first rallies he had here in Las Vegas. His whole campaign staff were some New York City cops, New York City bodyguards. That's the whole. He didn't have a campaign staff. He had New York City cops running the whole thing. It was just really bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, like, here in the States, the Clintons totally screwed Bernie Sanders. They totally robbed him. Yeah. And here in Nevada, it was like really right in your face. They actually overturned our votes and stole our votes.
Yep.
And so if the Clintons could control the news media to that extent, even Fox News, by the way, because even stuff that happened at the convention was covered up even by Fox News. So the Clintons have a huge amount of power with the press. So, obviously anything I watch on the news today, I have to have huge suspicions over because of what I know, went on during that election. So I'm watching Rachel Maddow right now. She lied to me during the elections. I know she's, I see her now. She could be telling the truth. I don't know, but I know she lied to me once. I can't believe everything she has to say.
Oh, they lie a lot. I mean, holy, it's not hard to prove that they're lying through their teeth constantly.
I think they just get handed stuff. Once again, you don't have time to look in depth of any of all these different issues.
I think they know they're bullshitting.
And they just hand stuff and they read it off the teleprompter.
They know they're part of
Everything that's on TV is staged.
All
of it.
I wouldn't go that far. No, I would definitely not go that far because, like I said, I've been involved personally with many 24-hour news stories. So the Charlie Sheen case, the Tiger Woods thing, Wienergate. So I've seen a lot of this really firsthand. George Zimmerman case, I was involved in it. So I've seen a lot of these 24-hour news stories and I've been there involved. And you're right. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that never makes it to TV and things get shut down. But this idea that everything's on TV is fake, then definitely not. Okay. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know Stormy Daniels is real. I know everybody involved in that. Those are all my people. When they get in trouble, they come to me. Okay, so I know these people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I put like this emotional. If it makes you feel a lot, like there's a lot of emotion that wells up in you, it's the bullshit meter is higher too. I think to me that's kind of the thing. But,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're
triggered.
Right.
So the more it makes you feel, the more it's probably not true, is my point.
Yeah, because, even like right after the Kennedy assassination, the first commercial, right after when they broke away from live broadcasting the Kennedy assassination, back to recorded TV, the first thing was a metronome clicking back and forth, tick, tock, tick, tock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like a Timex commercial.
Yeah, I forget what the commercial was for, but it was something really weird too. You got to go back and look that up.
Wow.
It's something really creepy. So obviously they know what they're doing. There's long term. Yeah.
So I mean, if that wouldn't have been sabotage, you think Sanders would have taken it?
Sanders be the president.
I don't think he would have been president. I heard he never wanted to be president.
He was just Clinton shill.
Well, I can tell you this: he definitely won here in Nevada. Okay, he won for real in Nevada, and it was stolen from us. It was stolen away from him. And I know, too, that he was convinced that he was going to win because they wouldn't come on my show because they thought my show was going to damage them, their credibility. We traveled on the campaign bus with Bernie Sanders up and down the whole state of California. I was at all rallies. Oh, yeah. I covered the whole campaign.
Wow.
Did you vote for Bernie?
No, because Bernie wasn't.
He couldn't.
But at the caucus, yeah. We voted for him at the caucus here in the primary, yeah.
You could have written him in, I guess.
Yeah, it was totally rigged anyway. The whole process was rigged. Those stupid caucuses, man. There was no chance with that.
Oh. Russians.
No Russians. This is rigged by the Democratic Party, man. But I'll tell you something else too. You want to hear something interesting? Is I had on my show Liddy Denier, who was the girlfriend of Ambassador Stevens over there in Benghazi, right? When they had the debate here in Nevada against Trump against Clinton. He brought Liddy Denier, Obama's brother from Kenya was here, and all these people. I forget. And the mother of Ambassador Stevens too. I had her on my show as well too. So they all had them at the Trump Hotel. So and we were protesting against the whole, both Clinton and Trump here. I'm very active locally here in the protests and stuff like that. So they wouldn't let us. The real protesters, we weren't even allowed to have like a cooler or a sound system or anything in our protest area. but they allowed the unions to have a taco truck wall around the Trump Hotel where they were all staying. They had a wall of taco trucks around this place, a big protest. And they were allowed to have their own sound system. They had all the news crews there. Everything was staged. So when the Trump's guests for the debate wanted to leave their hotel and go to the UNLV for where the debate was being held, they were stopped by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department and held up their caravan. Trump Pence signs were stopped and held up. They couldn't get, they had passes to get in and stuff like that. And they were stopped until it started. And then even when they got to the arena, they were stopped again by Secret Service where you get in. I've been through that Secret Service thing 100 times. Yeah. So, the local cops and the local politicians had it in the bag for Clinton here in Nevada against Trump. And here's a guy running for president, man, and they were able to sabotage him that way. So, yeah, it was totally, a lot of stuff was rigged, man, that's for sure.
That's how they get you.
That's why it's so hard to tell, I mean, I know you do make good points that I sound crazy all the time because of the things I say, but it's all like secondhand stuff and you never know what to believe and you're reading different things and,
Yeah, I know, but it's all crazy. Even when you know what's going on, it's crazy.
Right. That's what. Exactly. Everybody's crazy at this point.
Yeah.
You just gotta listen to more Grimerica. Be less crazy.
Just feeling going out
Or
to
at
the
least
woods,
feel like you
going
fit
off
in.
the grid. It's just crazy making.
That's right. Well, before we wrap up, Ed, where can our listeners track down more Ed Opperman?
Well, if you just Google Opperman Report, it'll come up iTunes or iHeart or something like that, or Spreaker. If you sign up to Spreaker, Spreaker.com, which is Spreaker, what do you call it? You'll get an email whenever a show goes live, And I'm on live Friday nights. I do a 2-hour interview Fridays. Then I do an hour solo where I just talk about nonsense. I do 2 hours on Saturday night, the same time, 5 to 7 p.m. I run a station called awakeradio.us. We have a bunch of different hosts on there, 2 different topics. Chuck O'Celli's on there with me and William Ramsey. Otherwise, my website is oppermanreport.com, and we have a special members section where there's all kinds of exclusive content. I did the show about the Steve Bannon's porn and meth house. They were filming porn. They were cooking meth in his house and stuff like that. That's exclusive.
Jeez.
Exclusive McMartin's. Yeah.
He's like the real Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you got to listen to those shows. There's a free one, too. You got to Google that. Google Steve Bannon porn and meth house. There's no doubt, because there's police reports. There's no doubt that Steve Bannon was up to some serious shenanigans in that house down there in Florida. And also, too, exclusively, though, I have, is that the guy who rented the house after them says he found padlocks on the inside of the house, like people were being locked in. Okay? Yeah. And he said, he hinted around at the end, he says, oh, yeah, we hope there's going to be a human trafficking investigation into this. He says, we hope it gets to that. But anyway, so OppermanReport.com is where you can find all the show-related stuff.
Right on. Yeah, it's an awesome podcast. You got a lot of interesting guests and a lot of interesting topics. And I like how you dig into, I listened to a couple where you spent, a couple hours with a researcher going over specific cases of child abuse or whatever, digging deep, which people don't really do very much anymore.
Yeah, I try and pick one topic, get someone who was personally involved and take their statement,
Yeah.
And I don't always agree with everybody, and I just take their statement down. The audience can decide, and we have it on record. We have it on record for the future.
Yeah.
I had Richard Lambert, who was the FBI agent who was in charge of the anthrax investigation, who reported directly to Bush and Cheney exclusively for 2 hours. No one else has ever interviewed him before.
Oh.
I had Doug Caddy, who was the first attorney for the Watergate burglars. But no one had him on. I find these people. No one has them before, So I try and get them on there, man, and create a historical record.
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
I'll send you a list of people to track down, too, that I want to have on the show.
David Miller, if you got any spare time. David Miller in the UK.
I want Graham for
David
a co-host, and I want Graham for a co-host.
You can I'll rent him to you. We can work something out.
After they send me to the sex bot, what was it there in
We're
Toronto?
going to send him to
The sex bot brothel.
in Toronto.
Jesus.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. We can figure out a
someone's gotta
payment
go.
plan. I mean, I can let this guy go cheap.
Thanks for the awesome chat, Ed. That was
thanks,
a
Ed.
lot of fun
Enjoy
and it
the
was
rest of your
enlightening
night.
and everything, yeah.
Yeah, thank
No, you guys are cool. Thank you
Nice
very
to
much.
meet you.
Okay, buddy. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
There you have it. One and only Ed Opperman.
What'd you think? That was pretty awesome, eh?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah,
It was great.
like it. He's a fun guy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
knows so much. Know so many people.
He was
We got to
able to
get
hold
him
his own.
on the Grimerica FM stream, but he has his own radio station already. It's
I
gonna
know
be
he's
tough.
already got his own stream. We're not supposed to cross the streams.
I don't mind crossing streams.
Yeah,
Cross them all over the
good
place.
stuff.
Not crossing them isn't working out very well either. So.
Sure.
That was good.
Yeah.
Some Trump bashing. Are you okay over there?
Oh fuck yeah!
All bruised up? You a little bruised
No,
up?
not at all.
Dust yourself off?
Dude, I just want fucking change and freedom
I
for
know
people,
you-
man,
Yeah,
and like some
totally.
love. Like
He
I,
just wants
I'm
change.
sick
so
of
bad.
the polarization. It's driving me nuts.
You
Like,
are the polarization.
I think it's
That's
going to
right.
get worse now.
I
before
feel
gets
like it
better,
is,
though.
man. I feel like it is. It's
This
gonna get
election
worse 'cause-
season's going to
yeah,
be insane.
Yeah,
Clinton Trump 2020 cage match.
yeah. But I like these guys that are just in the middle. They're just reporting the shit on both sides. Like it really is. It's good to approach the whole thing. But it does make me want to just do what
2
you've
weeks in
done.
a row.
Do what you've done and just get the hell out of politics for a while.
Come on down. The weather's great.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Ed for coming on the show.
Do you listen to No Agenda still?
I listened to No Agenda. I just finished the first one. Actually, I'm not quite done. I'm not even at
So
the second
you
one.
hardly even listen to that. See, that's tough because you're just going to get exposed to all the bullshit in the media, and it's hard to fucking take.
Yeah.
Like they have a great model and all that, but
Ain't nobody got time for that.
you know what I'm saying.
Check
right?
it out, motherfuckers.
I don't know.
Check out the
It's just-
Grimerica back
It's
catalog.
discouraging in a way.
Check out grimerica.ca/FM. We got our new stream going 24/7. All sorts of shit playing there.
There's also chats
Cool.
in the show notes for people as well. Like they want to contact us with future show topics or recent show chats or synchronicities or reports,
Grimerica.ca/chats.
suggestions. Yeah.
Check it out. New website coming soon.
Check out the Goodreads. There's a link for that in the show notes.
Is there? I haven't
think.
checked that out
is
yet.
there a
I'll have to
link
check
in
that
there?
out.
There
I
should
don't
be
know.
one
That's
in
your
the show
fucking
notes.
job. Check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. That's the big one. Check out the support page. Don't help us keep the value for value model alive and well. It's slowly dying on the beach. grimerica.ca/support. Other than that, motherfuckers, have a good weekend. Thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
Later.
Are you ready for intro? You can keep the stream go. All right,
Say hi to everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for
Whoever was
joining
there,
us.
or if anybody was there.
Shut off the YouTubes.